Hey everybody, welcome to the Realistic Prepper. This is show number 28. My name's Jack McLean, my co-host David Banther,
Hey, what's up?
and today we have a special guest, the Rhino. Go ahead and
Hola.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, my mom named me the Rhino. I have a YouTube channel called Survival Skills 101. I used to be a former sheriff's deputy, and now I'm a full-time martial arts instructor, and I'm a prepper as well. I love firearms, and I love everything about survival. So I appreciate you guys having me on today, too, by the way.
Oh no, we're glad to have you. Anytime we can get a guest with a certain expertise, that exceeds ours in whatever field, we're glad to have you on. So today we're going to be, obviously, with his field of expertise, we're going to be revisiting combatives. So we've already had one video, and if you're curious about that, go check us out on YouTube at the Realistic Prepper Podcast. Check out that video first, and this is kind of a continuation of that with a little bit more expertise thrown in, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth into the subject matter. But last time we kind of touched on it a little bit. Why do you need to know how to fight? Why is it important to know how to fight? And I think it's an often overlooked aspect of prepping. There's a lot of people out there. They think that if they have their beans and their rice and enough firearms and ammunition, they can survive the zombie apocalypse or whatever. And David and I tend to make fun of that type of thing with the tinfoil hat stuff. But it's a lot of people ignore a very important aspect of prepping, which is combatives and knowing how to fight. Not necessarily with weapons, that is important, but actually being able to defend yourself hand to hand, and why that's an important aspect of prepping. What are your initial thoughts on that, Keith? Or excuse me, Rhino?
Hey, well, one of the things I want to say is that I really feel that security is super important to your preps. First of all, knowing how to fight with weapons is super important. And I know there are a lot of countries that don't have guns, that don't allow guns, and that's kind of a sad thing. And I think that using firearms is a great way to protect yourself. But if you were ever like in a post-apocalyptic situation, and it could be that there is an earthquake, or the lights have gone out, or and I mean gone out for good, and we get launched back into the 1800s. You're going to need to know how to defend yourself. Security is important because people are going to be hungry, and they're going to come and try to take away what you have. That's whether get into your house, take your food storage, whatever. And I just, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they don't prep for security, but they like the beans that you were talking about, and they weigh 300 pounds. And maybe they don't like firearms, and I've met a lot of preppers that don't like firearms, and I'm thinking, wow, you are just collecting stuff for other people then, because you have no way to protect your food storage. And learning how to fight. Well, let's just put it this way: there's a lot of jerky people in the world, and then they're going to be hungry, and they're going to be even more jerky, and they're going to take what they want. And if you don't know how to fight, if you don't know how to defend yourself, things are going to go terribly wrong for you. And just because you have a gun too, you go, okay, well, I have guns, I'm good. No, I think you need to be in shape, and you need to learn hand-to-hand combat. You need to learn how to use a knife as well, because these are the things that are going to come in handy for you if things go really, really bad.
Right, and David and I were just talking about that day before yesterday, I believe it was, about the people who they consider themselves preppers, but they're not, they don't own any firearms, or they're against firearms, and that's exactly what we're talking about. All you're doing is collecting goodies for the people that are going to come take it away from you later, that do have the firearms and the weaponry and do know how to fight. And I think it's a very overlooked aspect of prepping. Uh, and that's why, because without it, then how are you going to defend all the stuff that you have? How are you going to protect that? What do you have any other thoughts on that, David?
Well, I agree with it 100%. And I think you can drill more down into, well, first off, if you're a prepper and you don't, I understand there's people that might not like guns for a personal reason, and I can respect that as I wish them to respect my rights to have all the guns I have. I don't understand it, but I can respect it. But to outright, if you are preparing, if you're a prepper, to outright reject any notion of self-defense or whether firearms or combatives is like me not wanting to store water or food. I see it as just as ridiculous as that. But I think more so, I know you and I, Jack, have talked about this, and I'm a prime example of this as I'm new to combatives. I've had a handgun since I turned 21, and been licensed to carry for the last like 8 years probably. And I did not start taking training on how to use my gun, actually in a combative nature, Jack, as you know, until this past January. I started attending a course that meets twice a month at my gun range for civilians. For it's called an advanced practical, and I've taken martial arts off and on over the last year. So that was my goal this year, was to focus on my combatives, because I knew I was weak in that. I have pretty good food storage and especially first aid storage. I'm very good with comms. That's a strong point of mine. But I was weak in the combatives, and I noticed that, and that's why I've done what I have done. I still have a long way to go, but I just think it's just foolish. But I would focus more on the fact that I know a lot of preppers, because I was one of them, that have a gun, know how to shoot well, but could not fight their way out of a paper bag. And I'm not saying you got to be as advanced as you two are, which you all are very advanced, or be a cage fighter. But you at least have to know how to do some basic self-defense moves in case your gun runs out of bullets or you don't have it with you. So.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, and that's why a lot of people ignore it, because it's one of those things you actually have to get up and do. I believe it's not something you can buy. It's not something you can go out. You can go out and purchase stuff, and you can purchase tools, and you can purchase firearms and ammunition. But when it comes to combatives and learning how to fight, it's something you have to put some work into and some effort into. And some of my I remember some of my first real training with firearms was with a guy named James Yeager years ago, and I'm not, we see things differently as far as some aspects goes, and he's a little rough around the edges, but the man, he's a smart guy, and he hit me with that adage, if your only tool is a hammer, all your problems start to look like nails. And it kind of made the light bulb go off, and it's like, well, if all I carry around is a handgun and I don't know any hand-to-hand tactics, every problem starts to look like a life or death shoot situation. And it's absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the majority of the problems you're likely to be in are not going to be lethal force encounters. They're not going to be a situation where you have to actually pull your gun and defend yourself with lethal force.
Can I give an example to that
ahead,
real quick,
sure.
Jack? Sorry. I discussed this with my cousin over lunch today on the news last night. We have a lot of cruise ships that come and go here from Florida. I'm here in Tampa Bay, the Rhino, and there was a Carnival cruise ship that went out. It was one of the smaller ships, so it was more of a booze cruise, like 3 or 4 nights, whatever. And the news people were there because when they docked back in Tampa, there were these teenagers that for the entire cruise terrorized a whole floor of people. They would, almost like the knockout game, as you would come out of your stateroom, they walked up and would punch a woman in the face, uppercut her, try and steal some of your stuff. These were passengers on the cruise ship and security on the ship, and I've been on lots of cruises that calling them securities like Paul Blart, I mean, it's not much.
Right.
Did nothing. And these people, they're interviewing this young couple. The guy's, he's got some weight on him, but he looks like he could throw a punch if he wanted to. He's standing there telling me what they did. They would push his wife and then try and take something from her and then push him and swipe his glasses off. I'm like, and at what point did you hit him back?
Right.
But that was never even mentioned. There was almost like self-defense was not an option. That was off the table.
Well, and I think the Rhino and I were kind of discussing that before the show, and I think a lot of that has been bred out of people, and thanks to social engineering and various other things, various other factors these days, it's been kind of bred out of people to defend yourself. We've been taught that to defend yourself is wrong somehow, or what are your thoughts about that, Rhino?
Well, first of all, I would beat that kid like a redheaded stepchild.
There you go, amen.
Yes.
He would get a beat. I would teach that boy a lesson, especially if he touched my wife. It would be an ugly thing. But a lot of people just don't know how to fight. And then, as honest citizens, we're told that you shouldn't do anything. You should call the police. And we don't want to get in trouble as honest citizens. We want to go about our lives in peace and not have to, not have to fight. And then sometimes trouble comes to you, and then we're hesitant to do anything about it. One, again, because we don't know how to fight, and two, we're afraid that we're going to get in trouble because we see it on the news all the time about how people go to jail. And quite frankly, I don't really care. I would beat the crap out of that kid, and he would know. I'm going to teach that kid a lesson because I'm not going to be a victim, and that's why I started taking martial arts. But people live in this world where they don't know what to do because society tells them one thing, and they just want to have power over themselves, and they feel powerless, and they're just sheep. They're just victims. And I'm going to tell you this: if your wife started getting raped by a couple guys, what would you do? That's pretty much the question.
It just kind of just baffled me that there was no again, like literally, like I think you all really hit the nail on the head when you said we are now being bred that it's not an option to defend yourself. And we all know fighting should not be the first thing. If someone's fleeing from you, if you're no longer in danger, but these people were not. These people were in danger. This was an ongoing occurrence for the entirety of the whole cruise. And I'm no cage fighter, but if you push my wife, I'm going to try and knock you out. It's how it's going to be.
Let me bring this up too. I see this. I don't know about you guys, but I see this in our local school system as well. The kids. There's a no touch policy, no fighting policy. Anybody who fights gets in trouble, whether you're right or wrong. Everybody gets in trouble. We're not allowed to talk about guns. We're not allowed to talk about any kind of violence whatsoever. So the good kids the bad kids, the kids that are the bullies and everything, and I don't mean to get too far off here, but it all starts in school. The bullies sit there and pick on you and pick on you and pick on you because obviously they don't care. They're like criminals. They don't really care. Only the good people care. And what happens is you sit and get victimized and victimized and victimized. There's a reason why kids fight in school. They're trying to solve their differences because talking didn't work. And usually when a fight breaks out, they're friends afterwards. Now, it's what happens is the good kid is the one that gets picked on. And then so you have to go to the police, which means the principal, the cops. And a lot of times hey, just leave him alone. Don't talk to him anymore. Ignore this. And they don't do anything about it. And this is how society is going in general. Like we don't feel comfortable even defending ourselves or even talking back to anybody.
I agree.
I agree 100%. I think it does start in schools, and you're never going to get rid of bullying. Okay, I hear this anti-bullying stuff all the time. You're never going to get rid of bullying. Okay, there's been bullies ever since there's been people, and there always will be. That's something you're not going to get. You're not going to breed that out of human nature just because you pass some laws. So you're always going to have your bullies, but we need to be teaching our kids from an early age how to deal with that type of thing. And running, and telling is not necessarily always gonna fix it. In fact, most of the time it will make things worse for the kid that is getting bullied. So I think does it need to be brought to people's attention, of course, but at the same time you need to realize that it's a problem that's always going to be there, and your kid needs to know how to defend themselves from an early age. They need the anti-bully training basically from early on. And I believe a lot of us, especially Dave and I both grew up in the South, and that's just what you did. I mean, if you're getting bullied in school, or if you seen someone getting bullied in school, you would take up for that person. You would step in and be like, okay, you're not going to do this. And well, who says I'm not? Well, I say you're not, and me and my 5 friends are going to make sure you don't bully this. That's just what you did. Mm-hmm. And that has been, like you said, it's being bred out of people. And with the school system being what it is now, we could do a whole show just on that. But to kind of get back on topic. I think we all agree on that. I think we're all on the same page, and we're basically preaching to the choir there. But let's go ahead and go a little bit more in depth. Stand-up versus grappling, and why both are important. And my philosophy on that is, and I've been asked questions. My students will ask me questions. Well, why wouldn't you just punch them in the face here? Or why wouldn't you, kick them here? Or, punch them there, poke them in the eyes, or whatever. And my general response to that is, not every situation requires such a level of force. Okay? And I believe in having a multi-tiered system. So you know your first step in a fight is always to avoid it, if at all possible. Avoidance is always the first thing, and I think most decent people would agree with that. You know, if you can get out of that situation, use the Nike principle, run away. If you can get away, if you don't have your family or someone there you're responsible for protecting, if you can get out of that, extricate yourself from that situation is always the best option, because the fight that never happens, that's the best one. But I think, you know, a lot of people who know how to punch and kick, and I throw myself in there too because I was real big on Muay Thai for years, and boxing. But the problem with that is not every situation requires me to punch somebody in the face. And I've given this example many times. David and I have gone back and forth on this, but you know, if my wife and I are walking through Walmart parking lot, and a drunk guy steps out of the bar that's you know, a couple of buildings down, and he comes over, and you know, he's flirting with my wife or whatever, he's getting in our face, you know, some drunk 150-pound guy, I'm probably not going to be justified in punching him in the face and, you know, breaking his arms and legs and choking him to death. I'm probably not. You know, but that's not to say that if he gets in my face, I can't throw him and hold him down until the cops get there. So it's a different level of force. And let's talk a little bit about that, Rhino. Your thoughts?
Well, they say that all fights go to the ground, but all fights start standing up. You know, 100% of them start standing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think, and I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I have a couple stand-up martial arts black belts. And I am really big into Jiu-Jitsu. However, learning to fight on your feet, I think, is very important, because out on the street or whatever, we don't want to be grappling on the ground. It's not a great idea. And if you think it is, then just go outside on the concrete and start grappling and
Exactly.
wrestling around and see how you enjoy that. I really think that I wouldn't say running away. Disengaging would be a really great idea. The reason is because whoever starts to attack you, you have to always assume that they have some kind of weapon. All right, that's what I always put in my mind, that this person has some kind of weapon.
Right.
And I don't be grappling on the ground with somebody who has a weapon. I'm just trying to get away, or to go somewhere where I can access my firearm, whether that might be on your person or in your car or whatever. You're just trying to get away, or you know, to go call the authorities or whatever. And typically people have friends, you know. And I'm going to tell you this: in a street fight kind of situation, what's going to happen is it's going to be two dudes, because they're not going to be equal. They're not going to try an equal fight. None of those guys want that. It's going to be two or three guys who are going to come at you, and they probably have weapons, and they're trying to rob you. And that's why firearms are a great idea. And that's why at least learning to defend yourself and understanding the concepts of where to strike people so that you can get away most of the time, and you'll probably have somebody you love with you. I mean, that's just the way it is. And then people are going to, you don't want it to deteriorate where you're on the ground getting beat up. So you have to think about these kinds of things. What's a fight really going to be like, in the sense of, it's not mutual combat. It's not, hey, Jack, you're ugly. Oh, Rhino, you're ugly. Well, let's fight. It's going to be, I'm walking out to my car and I get attacked by those kids, right? They're all together on that ship, right? They were all together doing it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's going to happen in real life. And those things need to happen. And if you're a 300-pound fat dude that doesn't fight and can hardly get out of his chair, man, you're easy pickings. Mm-hmm. Easy pickings. And plus, you're not mentally all there as well, because to even get your gun in a self-defense situation, a lot of times, because the physical goes along with the mental. When you're physically in shape, your mind is also a muscle that will get in shape as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you should say that, because David and I were talking about this several months ago, and at the time he didn't he wasn't into any type of martial art, and he you know, admitted he had let his fitness level go down quite a bit. And David's
fat boy.
Yeah, David's a big guy. He's about 290 pounds.
Yeah.
And you know, he realized this, and he you know, he got real introspective, and you know, it's like, I need to do something about this. This is my weak point. I can throw 2 or 3 punches and then I'm winded. That's not where I want to be.
No.
So he I believe that your first experience was Krav Maga, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then after that, he found a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu dojo there, and nothing will get your fitness up like some good old grappling. So
Oh, the
it'll definitely
sweat
get your
is just
wind up.
unreal. The sweat is just there's no amount of cardio will produce that amount of sweat.
No, and it's not easy, and you know
Oh,
you get in shape. You will get in shape pretty quick. So that's what I try to tell people. It's not about any one aspect. You can't like I said before with the firearm. You know, if your only tool is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail. Well, it's the same thing with a combative situation where you're talking about hand to hand combat. If all you know is jujitsu, I mean, you want to get that guy to the ground, and you don't. A lot of times you won't think, well, what if his buddy, soccer kicks me in the head while I'm applying that beautiful armbar? Um, but if you watch a few videos, just go to YouTube and look at jiu-jitsu and street fights. And sometimes it works out beautifully, and sometimes the guy's girlfriend comes up and soccer kicks the guy while he's putting on that rear naked choke. So it's something to think about. I had several instances back when I used to be security at a couple of strip clubs back in the day. I'm not proud of it, but it happened, and I needed the money at the time. So, but this was after my law enforcement days, and I did work security at some strip clubs, and we would always have some kind of problem at least a couple times a week. And as Rhino said, it was not fun if you ended up rolling around out on the concrete with somebody. Basically whatever touches the concrete, you don't have any skin on that body part anymore. And but there were times when I had to hold someone down, and see, I had backup. There's a difference between I was not out there on my own. I had 4 or 5 guys that had my back, so if he had any buddies coming in, they could take that. So my job was to hold that guy down and wait for the police to come take him away, basically. And there's a couple of situations where a guy tried to pull a knife, or one particular situation. This guy was he was fresh out of prison too, and he was bragging about his Aryan Brotherhood roots or whatever, and one thing led to another. He ended up predictably getting into a fight, and we escorted him out of the facility. He started to walk out. He turned around and he said, "I'm going to go out to my truck and get mine and come back and see what you have to say about it," or something along those lines. I'm sure he threw in some colorful language. But I never let him get to his vehicle. He got about 10 feet from his vehicle, and I basically tackled him from behind, and I held him in mount for about what seemed like 10 or 15 minutes. It was probably less than 5 until the police got there and drug him away, and they did find a loaded weapon in his vehicle.
damn.
And so, I mean, that could have turned out very badly, but I never gave him the opportunity to take it that far. But it just goes to show, I mean, I didn't have to hurt the guy. I didn't have to beat the guy up. He was 6 foot, maybe 200 pounds. I just had to hold him there until the cops got there. And so I think it's very important. And Rhino, you touched on this, the mental aspect of it. Not only the physical conditioning is very important, but the mental aspect of it is very important. You have to, there's some hurdles that have to be overcome in your mind, I think, and you have to make the decision that you're going to be ready to fight. And I think that was the biggest thing with David a while back, and that's why that's why he got into the martial arts and started trying to get himself in a fighting condition, because he overcame that mental hurdle. That said, as long as I have my gun, or as long as I have my preps, I'm fine. Well, no, he seen a shortcoming, and he knew he had to do something about it. And I think a lot of people need to cross that mental hurdle and get themselves into some type of physical shape. I know round is a shape. I've been there.
Hmm.
I think we all have at some point. Rhino, I know you're probably around the 40 mark. I am. So we at some point I think we've all been a little out of shape. A few years ago I was 240 pounds, high blood pressure, 40-inch waist. I got into jiu-jitsu and I got down to 152 pounds, and
Oh,
got in the best shape of my life. And I credit probably 80% of that to my jiu-jitsu. But I think it's important, the physical aspect of it as well as the mental side of it. Do you have any final thoughts on that part of it, David?
I think again, you guys are excellent on this topic. You mentioned the mental side too, and I think that's again, also forgotten about that. Yeah, say I've shot my gun. Yeah, I'm in decent shape, and I've been in some fights and won. But overall, do you have the mental ability to defend yourself? And I would compare and contrast that, like with me. I never been in a fight. I was raised uppity white boy in the suburbs, still in for most intents and purposes. I just combination of honing in my redneck roots and taking some training and just the mindset of prepping. Well, I don't have the fighting experience of some people. I would submit to you that just because of the mindset that I put myself in when I started getting serious about prepping 3 years ago, that I know mentally, not saying that I would win the fight, but I would engage if needed to, like I mentioned on that cruise ship. So having that mental ability is something that also is forgotten. So I'm glad you all brought that up, and I think Rhino said that the mental will follow when you have the physical and the training, and that's just very true. It gives you more self confidence, just being in better shape and knowing that you can defend yourself and just being mentally ready. Because those people, and I'm glad I saw this example on the news yesterday, so we can talk about it in the podcast here now. Those people, they act like they were just stunned victims, and I don't know. I've seen very few teenagers bigger than me, and I would at least give myself a fighting chance to defend myself. And they acted like they had no problem being a victim and were in no physical or mental state to defend themselves. So I'm glad y'all brought that up.
Well, and they had the victim mentality, and if you act like food, you'll be eaten. If you're,
Exactly.
and it's that way anywhere in nature. If you act like a victim and you have a victim mentality, you're exactly what the criminal element's looking for. Mm-hmm. Be it a group of teenagers looking to play the knockout game, or be it someone who's going to try to rape somebody or mug somebody. If you walk around with your head down and you're not paying attention to what's going on around you and you look like an easy target, you're going to be a target. And I think that's one of the first things you need to be aware of is what the criminal element looks for, and you need to change that about yourself if you fit that MO. Let's get on to the next topic here, and that kind of flows along with what we were talking about with the weapons a few minutes ago. Is integrating weapons into your combatives training. I know a lot of people who carry a firearm. In fact, I would say a good 80 to 85% of the people I consider friends, they do carry a firearm. That being said, I can count on one hand with fingers left over the number of people who have ever had any training in retaining that firearm or firearm retention techniques or actually fighting with a handgun. What are your thoughts on that, Rhino?
Well, there are a lot of people that don't know. I also teach concealed weapons classes. Done this for about 8 or 9 years, and a lot of people think once they have the gun, they're good to go. And if I had $1 for every dude who said I've been shooting all my life, man, I would be a millionaire. And then I start talking to them about, well, you know anything about weapons retention? What happens if someone sees your gun and starts fighting you over it? Or oh no, I don't. That's not going to happen. And it's always that's not going to happen.
Right.
As a police officer, I always found that weapons retention is huge because every call you go on, there's a gun there, and it's yours. Mm-hmm. If someone wants to take your gun, you're going to have to learn how to retain that. What happens if you get into a grappling situation? Once that gun is shown, man, it never goes away. I want to tell you, once it's out in the open, everybody knows that you have that gun there, and then it's easy to fight over. And most people don't even think about that. Weapons retention is the last thing they think about because they don't ever put themselves in that situation. And I would like to just go back just a little bit and talk about we're talking about the mental preparation for this whole thing. Mm-hmm. When a stuff hits the fan scenario, it's going to, and whatever that is, and my biggest fear is like an EMP, where all the lights go off. That is my scenario of something happening. And it could be an earthquake, it could be a riot, it could be a civil war, whatever yours is. Are you prepared for it? Well, if you're prepared for yours, you better prepare for some other things that are likely to happen. And in a scenario like that, what's going to happen is it's going to be some deep, deep, deep stress. Your family, who you might be the best prepper in the world. Did you prep your family? Probably not. They're going to be complaining and crying and wanting you to do something. And then your neighbors are going to start, hey, Rhino's got food over at his house. We don't have any. And then they're going to start coming over and asking you for some. And then if you give them, then they're going to come over for some more. And then they're going to start taking what they want. You're going to have to deal with these kind of things. And it's hugely stressful. And if you're not mentally prepared for this, and if you're not mentally prepared for like everyday society, going out with your firearm, and this is the day that I could get into a shooting, or this is the day that something can go bad. Because if you knew it was going to happen, you'd have a SWAT team standing by. But you don't. So you have only your thoughts about what's going to happen and mentally preparing that. And we call it crisis rehearsal. We rehearse these things. Well, God, what if I had my gun and I started grappling with somebody and he started grabbing onto my gun? What would I do? Oh, I don't know. And they don't think about these things. And in fact, I kind of think that a lot of preppers live in this fantasy world of everything's going to be awesome. They're going to be the happy ones and everybody else is going to be sad. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. And, there's going to be a lot of violence in a apocalyptic situation. We're going to resort to violence. I assure you of that. Are you mentally prepared to be able to handle that? Because there's going to be a bridge that you're going to have to get over mentally when people start killing each other and you're watching riots in the street where they're taking stuff and you're going, I can't believe this is happening. What did you think was going to happen? And what did you think that you're going to need to do when you're preparing for this, for your security? What, you didn't understand that? You understand beans, but people don't understand about, wow, what am I going to need to protect myself and my family? Oh, I just have a gun and a bunch of ammo. That's not going to be enough. You have to be a warrior, and you have to get your warrior mentality going. And in your mind, you say, hey, could I kill somebody? Are you prepared to having to kill somebody? Or save somebody's life, or do something that's going to require a possibility that you might be mentally, I don't know, what is the word? When soldiers come back, they have post-traumatic stress.
Right.
You have to prepare for that in advance if you're going to be a successful prepper. Otherwise, and I don't mean to hog this, but I just want to say one more thing. In my part of the country, we have a lot of LDS people, Latter-day Saints, Mormons, and they do a lot of prepping. And I've talked to a lot of LDS people, and they are the most beautiful, wonderful, nicest people in the world. And God bless them. I think they're awesome. Mm-hmm. But then I ask them about their security. Do you have guns? Oh, no, we don't. We
don't believe in them. Right.
We don't. I go, well, how would you defend this? Well, God will provide for us. And we'll get together with other people. And I'm like, wow. Now I know where I could go if I wanted to get more food.
Exactly.
Their food is going to be gone because they didn't mentally prepare for this. And I think the physical exercise and mental preparation need to come together if you're going to be a successful prepper.
I think you hit the nail on the head right there, and that was very well said. You brought up a couple of really good points there. As far as, and that goes back to what we were talking about before, people that have all their preps situated or believe that they do, but they have no way of defending their preps. You have to wonder where their mind is. They have not accepted reality. And it's the same, I see that mentality you're talking about all the time, Rhino. It's at my church, I'm the head of church security, and we have about a 6-man team right now, and you'll hear that a lot. I mean, if my pastor told us when we first got the team together about a year ago, he said, I want you to really keep this on the down low, because if I stood up on Sunday morning and announced that there were 6 people carrying firearms in this church at all times, he said half the congregation would get up and leave. Yep. And he's right. I mean, because people don't want to accept the reality that bad things can happen to good people, and they want to believe that they're going to be protected by whatever their divine entity is. If it be, whatever they want to refer to it as, but they want to believe that they're going to be protected and bad things can't happen to good people, and that goes completely in the face of reality that bad things do happen to good people. And I think the current church shooting, and there's been several of those just close to me. There's a church shooting about 10 miles from here. And it should be a reality check for these people that believe that way. But most people, they want to just they put their hand in the sand, or their head in the sand, and they're like, I don't see it, so it's not going to happen to me. Well, if that's your mentality, then you need to wake up and you need to start preparing. And I would say if you carry a gun on you, one of the first things you should do is receive training in retaining that firearm, because if you don't, you just introduced lethal force into that equation, and you're basically giving them a gun. to use against you. So I think it's very important. And you brought about the mental aspect. Can you kill someone? Can you shoot someone? Uh, the thing about that is some people have that in their mind that, oh well, I don't know if I could actually shoot someone in self defense. Well, listen, if you haven't crossed that mental hurdle and made up your mind that you can use deadly force if it's necessary, you do not need to be carrying that weapon, because you're only going to make matters worse by doing so. So you need to cross that mental hurdle in your mind first. And I will say that using a knife on someone, or grappling against that person and breaking arms, legs, and choking someone, it's a step up from using a firearm. And having done all three, it's a different level, and you do need to train for that different level of mental hurdles, for lack of a better way of putting it. Do you have any final thoughts on that particular part of it, David?
No, I think y'all are exactly right in all that you said, and I think it does come down, bottom line, to judgment and what kind of force you need to execute, and then your training. So I think you all cover those bases.
Well, that brings me to my next subject matter, which is actually finding a place to train. And David and I touched on this in Combatives Part 1. Finding a place to train is not as easy as people think it is, at least not around here. Now, I know there's a new MMA gym that opens up on a corner at least weekly here. You can't go through my hometown without seeing, a half dozen MMA gyms. So I think people need to. I think people do need to seek training. It is very important that they seek training in hand-to-hand combat as well as with weapons. But right now we're talking mainly about the hand-to-hand stuff. Do you have any suggestions for people, Rhino, that may be looking for a place to train? Looking for a place to get their hand-to-hand combat training.
Well, I think it even goes deeper than just looking for a place to train. It's, first of all, changing your mindset. Because, Jack, we've been talking for a while. We talked earlier before this broadcast about people who are really out of shape and who prep. And you have to change your mindset. First of all, why do you care about prepping when you're 350 pounds? You're probably only got 10 years to live. I'm not trying to be mean about it, but why do you want to live in a post-apocalyptic world if there's something that's happening and you want to be alive? Don't you want to be in shape where you can just keep on living till you're 80 or 90 years old in a regular world, of everyday world? Mm-hmm. And we sit here and I see these people, and I should, and they're probably right now going, oh, I should take some self-defense lessons. That would be great. But they're so out of shape that they can barely get up. They're maybe smoking 2 or 3 packs a day. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, you need to change your life as a person and make a commitment that you're going to get in shape starting out. And going to a martial arts class and things like that, that's fantastic. But, you go there, you get tired, I don't want to, and then things start happening where you start talking yourself out of it. Start getting on the treadmill, start walking, start getting into shape. And as you're losing weight, then you should start thinking about, hey, I should go, take a martial arts class or something like that. But you've made a commitment that I'm going to stick with it. Mm-hmm. I might stay away from the MMA schools and things like that, especially if you're out of shape or you're older. Get into shape and you go take a Krav Maga class. I mean, that's great. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a great class, but you got to find the right class for your temperament. If you're a really nice guy and don't want to hang around with ex-convicts, you need to find a school that reflects your values. But making a mental commitment, starting to get into shape, and then starting to learn martial arts. And once you've started martial arts, I'd highly encourage you to start working with knives, start working with firearms as well, if you're one of those dedicated preppers that really believe that something could happen, And we're not sitting here going, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. I just want to be better prepared. And in a post-apocalyptic situation, it is going to be like a war zone. That's what I think. And are you prepared to do battle? Now, not even just to save your life, but to save the lives of people you care about. Mm-hmm. And helping to rebuild. And And people don't really, they just, they just think short term. Oh, I've got beans and I can eat. Well, that food's going to run out. What are the plans? What are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
And not so much for a post-apocalyptic world, Jack and David. It's what are your goals for this world? What if nothing ever happens? Are you, are you sitting in your bunker right now and going, oh, yeah, something's going to happen, so I'm not going to do anything with my life. I'm just preparing. What kind of life is that?
Exactly.
Being in a world that you're positive and you're getting stuff done and you're living the life you want, and we prep just in case things go bad, not because we're so waiting for them and that's our goal in life was to be ready for the apocalypse. Because what if it never happens, man? We want to be successful in this life as well. Because I guarantee you're going to die. You might die in this world or the apocalyptic world, but you're prepared for both. Anyway,
No, I think you touched something very important there that we mentioned before, and I think that's why we're called the realistic prepper. Now where I live in the country with my threat of hurricanes in my lifetime, though I have and will have to use my preps, but that's a controlled event, okay. But these preppers that almost like you said want something to happen, it's ridiculous. I hope this is all hobby and sport. And this is something that Jack and I get together once a week and do, and I buy stuff on Amazon, and that's just my sport is to have the tools and supplies I need to protect my family, and and that's all that ever happens. I never want to have to use my stuff, and I think that's what makes us different than some other prepping venues out there, which I watch and benefit from, but that almost I think wish something to happen, but.
Well, David, we buy car insurance for our car, but we don't sit there going, "Damn, I can't wait to get
exactly
insurance."
That's the truth. That's well, actually, being a student of economics, when you buy car insurance, you are betting you will have an incident more so than the provider does. But you're exactly right. We don't buy it wishing for one to happen. And I also want to touch on what you said about try and avoid just the out of the box MMA schools. I went to one of those for Krav Maga and learned some great things. Like they had a 12-week course that repeats until you get past your third or fourth belt. I did the 12-week course. I could not pass the first belt test because of the cardio. And but it was very valuable, and I've always said if someone does not want to get into martial arts but wants to learn how to fight and has no clue, Krav Maga is a pretty quick way to learn how to punch, how to kick, and so do that. And I like to couple that with what I learned with the grappling that I took, but. I did have to be careful not to get sucked into their world where they're trying to sell you something every week and always, and like Jack taught me to, always question your instructor or where they came from. Are they qualified to teach what they're teaching? Have they sparred or fought professionally? And make sure you're receiving the training that is accurate and that is qualified, because otherwise you can A, learn bad information, or B, hurt yourself. So that was a very good point.
Well, you have to check the lineage, especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu these days. I think it's very important because generally speaking, the further a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner falls from the tree, the more watered down the art's going to become. So you have to kind of check the lineage on that. And there are a lot of fake black belts going around nowadays. It's all over Facebook, and some of them have received a lot of attention recently. But I mean, it's not completely implausible that someone pop up a gym in a town and put a black belt on and say, okay, I'm teaching jiu-jitsu now, I'm gonna charge $150 a month or whatever, and I'm gonna but the thing is, I think with jiu-jitsu more than some of the other martial arts, it will be questioned quicker than some of your other martial arts. In some things, you can fake it to make it, as they say. Jiu-jitsu is generally not one of those things you can fake it to make it. It's going to be proven real quick once you get out there on the mat what your rank is and what you can do and what you can't do. And but I would definitely suggest you seek out quality instruction, and that goes with a handgun, with a knife, with combatives, and it's not a a single tier thing. It is a multi-tier approach. You need, you need the different training, and I would say integrate it, because at my school, and it needs to be tested. It really does. At my school, about every 6 weeks, I'll put on the gloves and we throw punches. Now, I'm not trying to hurt anyone, and no one's trying to hurt me, but we'll put on the gloves and we'll throw punches and kicks and such. To test our grappling ability against punches, and that's why I tend to shy away from the sportier aspect of jiu-jitsu when I teach, is because I don't, if it won't stand up to punches, kicks, knees, and elbows, I really don't want to integrate it into what I show, because I try to teach jiu-jitsu for street, not for sport. Does that mean you can't compete with it? No, it just means that that's not the direction that I try to go in. I think it should be able to stand up to the test. And it's the same thing with knives. If you ever think that you can defend yourself against a knife attack, get someone with who's highly motivated and athletic. Get them holding about a 9-inch rubber knife, and take a Sharpie, and I want you to mark. And that we do this every once in a while. We'll mark it with a Sharpie, and if you end up with any marks on you, then that means you got cut. And get them about 10, 15 feet away, and have them attack you randomly, and see how what you think holds up against that type of attack. And I think a lot of people will be very surprised where their skill level is compared to where they thought their skill level was. It is a real eye opener, and I realize not everyone can do the next level of training. But if you ever have the opportunity, if you carry a firearm on you, and you ever have the opportunity to go to a higher level shooting school, Thunder Ranch, Gun Sight, we used to train at Blackwater, but I would not recommend that place anymore for obvious reasons. And Tactical Response, right down the road from me in Camden, Tennessee, is a good place. I would always recommend that you seek a higher level of training and proficiency with that firearm. It is very much a perishable skill. It is like jiu-jitsu. It is a perishable skill. And if you don't do it, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I would recommend you seek additional training. And if you can ever get any force-on-force training with your firearm involving simunition rounds or something along those lines, it's very fun to do that. It can be very painful, but you will learn a lot in a very short amount of time. Any final thoughts, David and Rhino, on the subject of combatives today?
I just want to thank Rhino for coming on. He's a wealth of knowledge and on this combative stuff. And then Jack's only said good things about you, Rhino. I've only heard good things about you, and it was nice to have you on here. I always enjoy getting subject matter experts on here, and it also is helpful to us when everything you've said reaffirms what we believe. So I know we're kind of in line. So thank you for taking the time to be on our show today, and I hope it's not the last one.
Let me just say before I go that your mind is the weapon. All right. So you have a gun, you have a knife. That's great, but your mind is the weapon. The attitude that you have, the thoughts that you prearranged in your mind, and everything else is going to be around your mind. And when you have, and that's why it's important, because if we're using our mind, we need to get our bodies in supreme physical condition. I mean, you need to have that, get into shape, at least to live your life, but also to help yourself mentally and emotionally as well. And in a situation that if you're prepping for this, that could happen, it's going to be the most stressful thing ever times 10. And getting into shape, there's no downside to being into shape, both physically and mentally. And martial arts can really help you out. And it's been wonders for me. And it's been wonders for my family, and I highly encourage people to start taking at least a realistic form of martial arts to help prepping.
That's
Amen.
awesome. That's awesome, and like you said, no one's ever been in a fight and then afterwards said, I wish I hadn't gotten such great condition. That was just, that was a waste. Nobody ever said that. So I think that's an awesome way to end it up here. Guys, if you want to check out the Rhino, go to youtube.com and just do a search for Survival Skills 101, and it will take you to the Rhino's prepping channel. He has a lot of good content on there. I am subscribed to him, and I recommend that you do as well. Please check him out. And if you have any questions, comments, or if you would like to be a guest on the show, please contact us at the Realistic Prepper Podcast at gmail.com. Get in touch with us on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/The Realistic Prepper. And we encourage feedback, guys, whether it be, criticism or whether it be praise. We encourage any type of interaction with our listeners. So, guys, get in touch with us. Any questions, comments, and as always, we appreciate the Rhino for joining us today, and I think that'll do it. And as always, guys, we'll see you next time.
So,